Welcome back to another episode of the Bull and The Cub podcast. I'm your host, David.
And I'm the co-host, also David, David's dad. All right, so what a week it was. So for this episode, we're really just going to talk about what was going on in the news this week because it was just such a wild week in the stock market. The week ended very well for the stock market. I mean, the S&P 500 is up 1.81%, Dow is up 1.56%, Nasdaq's up 2%, but it wasn't really about the week so much as a crazy day on April 9th, David. What happened on April 9th?
Well, on April 9th, Dow jumped up 7.5%, Nasdaq jumped up 12%, and the S&P 500 went up 9.5%. This is because of Trump's announcement of the pause of tariffs.
Yeah, right. So we had just a wild week. I mean, it's just been a wild few weeks here. But, to recap, April 2nd, Trump announces the implementation of very severe tariffs. We talked about it last week and the impact of tariffs on the market and country-specific analysis last week. But when he announced that, obviously, stocks started tumbling because fear that as imported goods are taxed, the price of those goods are going to go up and people will buy less goods. We might go into a recession and companies will make less profits, and so stock prices are going down. People pulling money out of the market. Now all of a sudden he announces on the 9th, like you said, David, there's going to be a pause on some of these new tariffs, and all of a sudden everybody's excited and stocks just start flying.
It was actually insane because this was, I think, since something in 2008, this is one of the highest jumps in a singular day in history.
It was.
Besides, after it was for a while. I mean.
Right, exactly. It was kind of insane. They're even investigating some insider trading that took place where you can see all this activity in the market in the hour before the news came out. So clearly, a lot of people knew something was coming before the news came out, and there was a lot of trading, which is illegal and unfortunate that those things happen. So they're investigating that. But where do we sit now, David? What are the tariffs that are in place? There's been so much up and down in terms of who's getting a tariff, who's not. But where do the tariffs stand right now?
He said he's putting a pause on tariffs, but that's just some tariffs.
On the new ones. That's on the new ones.
That's on most of the new ones.
Right.
So there's still 145% tariff on all goods from China, a 25% tariff from all automobiles and those types of things from other countries and stuff, and then 10% tariff from all other imports.
Right. Okay. So and the 10% is pretty reasonable. The 145% on China is pretty dang severe and has created a trade war, tariff war with China. China's in turn responded and raised its tariffs on U.S. goods coming into China to 125%. So.
Which I think the same thing is going to happen. But I think I said this last time. Mm-hmm. But before, a lot of China's products has been moved to Vietnam and other places because the tariffs are so extreme that's more worth it just to move to other places to use those products or to make those products.
Right, exactly. We've seen that. Now it's hard. A manufacturer can't do that overnight, right? And so it takes time, but at least after the Trump's first administration, we talked about last time, a lot of companies moved their operations from China to Vietnam because of these high Chinese tariffs. We talked about last time, David, a country-by-country analysis is really needed under this Trump era to figure out what direction tariffs are going for a particular country, so that you can determine if a particular country is in talks to get rid of a tariff or negotiate with the president. That's something you want to follow in the news and be aware of, and you can likely see companies who obtain products from that country doing well if that tariff is lifted. But it's not just a country by country analysis. It's it's kind of a product specific analysis. So it's not, so talk to me, David, what specific companies have been, of interest when it comes to, for example, the Chinese tariffs?
Well, basically what happened with these tariffs on China, for some big different, and not just the big ones, a lot of different like tech type companies with like microchips and those types of things. Like Apple, for instance, their tariffs have been at least on a pause, which I think was announced on Saturday, which is like highly beneficial to all these different stocks. And like for weekend trading for stocks like Apple, their stock went up a lot.
Right, and that's a big deal because I think what I'm sure advisors for the Trump administration told them is, listen, if you put this massive, go into a tariff war with China and put this massive 145% tariff on Chinese import products, think about the iPhone or computer products or chips or things that come from China. Those are not just things that impact some of the U.S. population. Those are things that impact the entire U.S. population because everybody has a phone or a computer. And so it's just something that I think they were wise to exempt so that they wouldn't have such a devastating impact on the economy. But anyways, so it's a wild week. Any other thoughts from the week, or are you ready to recap our game?
I'm ready to recap on our game. What about you?
Yeah, no, we're just gonna have some interesting news coming every single week now with this tariff stuff. But hopefully things calm down, and hopefully in 90 days we don't just revisit this as the tariff issue picks up again.
Well, for last week's game, I actually did pretty well with my Callaway stock going up around 7%. And then with your Nike stock, it only went up around 2%.
Right, yeah, and I was both of us, did well. You did better than me. I was gambling on the Nike stock doing well, as I was hoping Vietnam, the tariff deal with Vietnam would help the Nike stock out there. But all in all, a good week, good stocks, both good stocks to kind of buy at this time. I think your Callaway stock's a great stock to buy. It's hovering pretty low and has a long way to go up here compared to where its prior high was. What's your stock this week?
Well, this week, my stock is going to be Palantir, since all that talk about the microchips and stuff from different imports are getting their tariffs kind of stopped basically, or paused. Palantir hasn't really had their spike yet for that. I mean, it went 2% up over the weekend, but that's not really much, so I feel like it can go up a lot more.
Okay, good. So you're trying to get in while it's still on a little bit of a low spot. All right, I'm going to go with Apple. Hopefully people can get in on this early, because if you look at what was going on with Apple, it's really fascinating. Again, importing a portion of its products from China. April 2nd rolls around, and it just takes a massive dive when the tariffs are announced on April 2nd, and it drops from 224 essentially over the next day to 172, so a massive drop. But as soon as we see on April 9th the announcement that there's going to be a pause on the tariffs, we see it jump up considerably. It's at and then plus, as we saw over the weekend, news this weekend about, as you were saying, David, the iPhones and different products being exempt from the Chinese tariffs. We just are seeing a lot of buying over the weekend. It's up $11 over the weekend in aftermarket buying. So, but still, I think a good buy for the week as that news spreads and people want to get in on the action there. So that's all from me this week. Anything from you, David?
I think that's all. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.